Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of this 5-Door Media podcast, where we are jumping into the world of sales by talking to some of the top industry professionals to see how they like to turn opportunities into revenue, revenue into profit, profit into freedom, and freedom into impact. Let's get into today's conversation. Today, we have another great guest on the show, Tyler Starkey. Tyler just is not another business coach. He's helped over 250 entrepreneurs scale their business to 1 million plus in annual profit. His strategies have changed the game for countless business owners, earning him the titles of 2024 Entrepreneur of the Year and 2024 Business of the Year in his town in Oklahoma. He's also an Amazon best-selling author, sharing powerful insights on scaling, strategy, and financial freedom.
Tyler, hey, what's up? Thanks for having me on. Pretty excited.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. How have things been?
Oklahoma is the first good weather day. It's been snowy and just terrible, very hateful outside for the last month. So it's nice. 60-degree weather today.
Yeah, we have like a random 45, 50 degree today in Indiana. So like I call that hope. Hope that winter is potentially over.
Time change is coming next week. It's the 9th or 8th. Setting the clocks. Can't wait.
That's crazy. Awesome. Hey, well, thanks for coming. This is, I think the 7th episode we've done of this series, and honestly, it's been really cool for me. I'm probably driving my staff crazy because like the things I'm learning from the people that I have on this podcast, I'm like constantly bringing up in the office and like referencing it to it. But I do think that's a cool thing about doing this podcast for me selfishly. I mean, I hope the people that are like listening get some value from it, but also like selfishly, 5-Door Media is getting so much better because of the guests that we're having on this podcast, because like the things we're learning from real home service business owners, and I'm really excited to have you on today. So as we've talked about, this series, this season that we're on right now, the conversation and the topic is sales. I've been asking this question. I think it's a fun one. Do you remember, in like your life, do you remember the first thing you ever sold?
As for like an entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. Or like, I mean, mine was a yard mow when I was a kid. Like that was the first thing like I remember like selling on my own.
Yeah, I had a lawn business when I was like 10 or 11. I would steal my dad's push mower and his weed eater, and because he lived in town, and I would just start walking down doors and doing lawns, like big lawns for like $5 and $10. I remember one time this older lady, and she was like, "What do you charge?" I was done. Like I was sweating and dying. It's mid-July in Oklahoma. I was like, $7? She goes, take 20.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Nice. That lady knew about profit margin. That's good. Very nice. Very cool. Yeah. So do you have also a sale that you're most proud of?
I think the one that comes to mind the most was when we started the exterior cleaning business. It was like my first sale. I remember like having like the shaky voice process and trying to walk somebody through their property, what we do and how we do it. And it vastly underbid it, but we got it. So close the deal on that one. But I remember the nerves.
Very cool. Yeah. Do you remember what that was?
House wash. So we do soft washing with our trucks and stuff. But it was in town here. This nice old lady. It wasn't perfect, but she loved it. So we learned and grew.
I love that. Very cool. Got to help out those old ladies, right? Yeah. So the season is on sales, and I think it makes sense for us to have this conversation because sales and marketing, as time goes on, they just become more and more, connected. But a really fascinating thing to me about sales, similar to marketing, is a lot of people have different sales philosophies. And I know you were joking about before we got on, you're like, man, I don't know. I'm not a great salesperson, or I'm not a great salesman, or anything like that. But that doesn't mean like you don't have a great sales philosophy. So like, tell me about how maybe you look at sales that might be different than the average home service business owner.
So we don't think about sales at all. Like we don't even, like the word never even comes up. So kind of how we got to where we are now is we branded so hard on the services that we do. And we kind of niched out of like how everybody else does it in Tulsa or Oklahoma as far as like exterior cleaning with windows or gutters or whatever you're doing. And we just market so hard that when they call us, it's not a sale of trying to close the deal. It's just we listen to them. They have an issue. We have a response on how to resolve it. And if the price and the scheduling is right, we just move forward. So we kind of took the sales process out of it by over marketing and over branding. Absolutely.
So do you think some people overthink?
Yeah, because when you think about sales, it has at least in our area, like a dirty connotation to it. It's like you're trying to sell somebody that they don't need a thing, so it feels weird. But when people call us, it's they have an issue, we have a solution, and then we just compromise a price at it, if it works out.
Yeah. That's been a common, I guess, the way of looking at it is confidence gets brought up in the topic of sales. And like people having like the confidence to be able to do it right and confidence to be able to say that price. And we've talked about a lot with other guests. A lot of times we forget these people contacted us, or like these leads that even are coming in, they filled out a form.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of home service companies out there that are cold calling residential homes for cleaning. Like that doesn't happen. So we forget that like there should be this confidence behind all what we're doing in sales. Like, hey, they came to us with this. So if, you say like we'd never really talk about sales, how is the idea of sales structured in your company? Like who is actually doing selling, or like who's doing like what roles are doing that?
So
and how does that work?
we have an online presence. We use Responsibid and Jobber. They integrate really, really tightly for us. So a lot of our stuff comes in on there. They can self-schedule, look at the services that they want to do. It'll show pricing for them. That's about 30% of our business is coming from right there. But I was working with Megan, and she's all about recurring revenue. And we started in 2022, like a VIP membership maintenance program for all of our residential clients, and that has been a really big chunk of our business. Is just the same people every single year. And it's been the fastest way for us to scale to the number we're doing now in the last 3 years. There's no way. I mean, you can pay to play it. Like you can get on Google and give them $100,000 a year, and generate about 7 figures in gross revenue. But for us, I just love the low marketing cost of having a recurring model through like a VIP program. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that then. So how long were you in business before you started that
2
recurring
years.
program?
Yeah. 3 years.
Okay. Because I mean, selling that recurring program must have been a thing, right? Because you were 2 years in, 3 years in without it. So let's talk about when you launched that. What was that like? Was that also built in through that Responsibid software? Where you said only 30% of sales are coming through that. So like, what was that process to educate your customers on? Hey, there's this membership VIP. Everybody likes to be
everybody loves
VIP, right?
Everybody loves that.
Yeah. So like, tell me about that process when you launched that.
Before Megan and I sat down and chat about how she was doing it, in Northern California, I had a dentist client, and she was like, "I really want my windows done. Can you do them like every other month or every month?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess I could. Nobody's done it." And she was like, "Yeah, she's
what are you doing
me.
to your windows?
She's like, you don't offer this to everybody."
Yeah. Hey, she's like, I get them every 6 months to clean their teeth. Like that's a recurring revenue right there.
And chatting with her, she's very smart and she's very business savvy. I have adopted her, like you've heard of like the dentist close, right? So that was part of like the reoccurring. So it's like, "Oh, Miss Jones, we're out here on a Wednesday for your windows. You want that next quarter on a Wednesday also?" Like you're just incentivizing the conversation, And she's a fantastic client. But she taught me a lot just about the mindset of where the business could go if I would just on site when I'm talking to the client, we're laughing about dogs. Say, "Hey, do you want this done in 6 months?" And it started out like real unstructured. Like I didn't know how to systematize that. But it's gotten really easy. Like meeting people like you and different people in our organizations. Like you were getting so deep into exterior cleaning and home service operations and stuff. I'm sure you're seeing everybody do this differently though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's weird from my standpoint, from like the marketing agency, because I've always been recurring, right? Like that monthly retainer is like the business model for a lot of agencies. But yeah, we see a lot of recurring in like the residential and commercial cleaning world aspect. Obviously, in the lawn and landscape world that we do quite a bit in, there's a lot of recurring there. Now, there's still project basis too, but so. How did you message that to people when you were launching it? Were they already potentially getting it done frequently? And you're like, "Hey, you're already doing this, but we gave it a name." You're like, what was that like?
I think my clients were ahead of the program before I was. So it's like when we started sending out the emails, like, "Oh, there's a new launch. If you want to, pay the $9 a year to be a part of this, discount program and stuff," they were like, "Of course you should be doing this." But
Made it a
no-brainer. So now we're year 3 into this program, and we have a couple hundred people. We do like their gutters every 6 months or annually, and same with the windows or pool decks. So it was finding services that we could do at least every 6 months. Like windows are quarterly for some clients, so it's fantastic. But you'd
Mm.
start looking at like driveway cleanings or house washes. That's more of a biannual sometimes here in Oklahoma. We don't have a lot of mold and stuff where you would see it down to like Louisiana or somewhere south. So it was defining
Mm.
the services that we loved the ROI on. We loved how to market and brand them very clearly. And then we just chose those for our reoccurring program. So not everything we offer is a part of it, just because it's hard to get something
Got
done
it.
like that, like a house wash every year. It's a misspend.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. Something I've always found fascinating in conversations I've been in with you or I've heard you be with other people is the way you look at pricing. And a lot of times in the topic of sales, pricing doesn't get talked about a lot, other than like pricing becomes a 4-letter word where they just say
Right.
you're too expensive, right? Like tell everybody how you look at pricing, and specifically, I know you've looked at like variable pricing and how that works, and how it all. If I'm remembering this right, you clean some
Right.
Starbucks locations, right? Yeah, and like that kind of like sparked your brain into Starbucks does
Yeah,
variable
absolutely.
pricing. Why can't we? So let's start there, and then I want to talk about like how that worked itself into the sales
So
process
before I
too.
had a good entrepreneurial life doing this, I was deeply invested in working with the Starbucks brand. So I would travel around the U.S. opening Starbucks everywhere. But part of it was doing my role back then was doing pricing baskets. So not everybody knows this, but Starbucks changes their pricing monthly. So during hot summer times, what are the key product mix or the P mix that sells the most? It's like the refreshers, it's the iced teas, iced coffees. So items like those, you'll see about a 40% markup. Inversely, though, when it's hot outside and people aren't wanting to buy the hot coffees, the hot drinks, those prices go down accordingly to kind of even out the menu. So you'll see it change when it's like wintertime and it's cold and everybody wants the hot drinks. And those
Mm,
inverse to 40% higher because that's the P mix. That's just the sales are going to be there. Why not capitalize on the money? Like they're going to buy the item, you know.
mm,
But a lot of theirs comes down to just a really strong branding. Once somebody's a Starbucks fan or consumer, they're almost a lifetime. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So when we started the exterior cleaning business, it was difficult at first because I didn't understand the real model of like changing pricing. And I started with the Starbucks model, knowing like summertime, it's going to be windows, pool decks, things like that. So all of our services are actually very seasonal. Which when I saw it on a map after about a year and a half of like business, we had some good data to see the ebbs and flows of things. Um, and it made the most sense to not do it on seasonality, but it was based on conversion rates. So yeses to nos leads
Mm,
to invoices, things like that. So we have a big metrics, and I've shared it with a couple people that I've encouraged them to start using too, but it just makes sense. So you look at like your marginal cost for everything. You look at your total revenues, and then it's just a conversion of based on leads, yeses and nos to clients to invoices. So we try to stay about 55% conversion is our goal. If we're too high, our prices are too low. So if the conversion is like at 30%, that means our prices is probably too high for the region of the services that we're offering.
mm-hmm. So like, tell me, have you ever got
Oh,
pushback on that with like
yeah.
variable pricing? Yeah, you have. So like, tell me about those situations and how you talk yourself through
Um,
that. Because Starbucks probably
they
doesn't.
don't care.
Like that's what I was going with, right? Like, yeah, I mean they don't care. Or I mean, like honestly, I don't know. I've become like a once a week
Uh-huh.
coffee person. I get my caffeine in other
Yeah.
places during the week with like pre
Mhm.
workouts and things like that. But like coffee is like a
Yeah.
weekend thing to me. I would never
No.
notice if Starbucks like my cup of coffee was 40
Mhm.
cents more, or something like that than it was the last time. But we're obviously talking with home service. There's much
Yeah.
bigger ticket items, so like that change could
Mhm.
make more of a difference. So, what tell us about some stories where people like notice that pricing and how you walk through that?
Not so much. Many people don't even notice it. So when somebody like a new client comes and then they call for gutter cleaning, they might call two, maybe three businesses. But when somebody calls for gutter cleaning, they really don't know what the cost is going to be. As far as like the Midwest we're from, so all of our reoccurring clients, we kind of lock them in as an incentive to keep calling us every year. So if Mrs. Jones had us out for $2.99, for a 45-minute gutter cleaning back in 2020, it's still going to be $2.99 for her. But I know other people that change it; they'll fluctuate, for their old clients and stuff. But I like to keep it as consistent as possible. Um, we don't get any kickbacks. Like we'll get no's saying our quotes are, or yeah, our quotes are too high, but I think we're just too high for them because we're still very busy. So I'm not worried about, a few responses or negative feedbacks where they think we're expensive. We're expensive for them, and that's true. A lot of the data that we pull that I'm looking through right now for 2024, it's so zip code based on where we're getting our best average tickets right now, as far as like finding disposable income, little maps through Tulsa and Broken Arrow and places like that. So that's even more getting nerdy into what we do as far as pricing goes.
That's interesting. Data
It's
is
addictive.
powerful, right? So how long were you in business? Because this is interesting too. Because I was like this. And I love that you're okay being too expensive.
I pride
for
myself
people.
a little bit. Yeah.
How long did it take you to have that attitude?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because when you start, you're never too expensive for anybody because you're probably giving discounts to get any job you can.
Dude, I remember
get,
the I'd say first year and a half at least, I was doing everything for $1, right? Just whatever I could do. The handyman guy doing TR repairs, staining fences. Like the board was big as far as the service offerings would go.
If a human could do it, you were doing it.
But as we've gotten a lot of capital capacity built up over the years, we don't have to do that anymore. Like it's gotten very fun to push pricing because if we don't have have you ever heard of a burn chart? So if we stopped making today, another dollar didn't come in, we would last about 14 years of doing nothing. So now it's a fun time because we have the capacity built up to kind of push things like our pricing to see how much we can get for X service and what zip code it is and things like that. But until then, it was, I don't want to say stressful because there's so much pressure as an entrepreneur to keep providing revenue for your business. We just played tight for a couple of years, and then now it's gotten really fun because there's no pressure to close every single deal that comes in.
Gotcha. Love it. Very cool. Tell me one thing that you think most home service business owners are missing the boat on or not getting when it comes to sales.
It's a lack of marketing and branding. I see that a lot. I talk with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially local guys that are like trying to get in the business or they're trying to get from 100,000 to 500,000, year to year, and they're missing the boat on how impactful just basic marketing. So earlier you were talking about just having the confidence when somebody calls you to be able to do your spiel correctly. But we have such a reputation through like all of our Google reviews or Facebook reviews. Like we have hundreds and hundreds of reviews. Someone sees our profile, they're just automatic like service mastery concept when somebody calls us. They're not worried about if one of our subsidiaries is going to be able to do the job safely and protect their assets as far as their properties go. So I think that's a lot of the magic. It's just having a lot of online reputation built up. So when they call you, they're not questioning you. They're trying to figure out pricing if it's right for them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A few other guests that we've had so far is like, honestly, if your branding and marketing is on point, the sale is done before you even make the call.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you a big believer in that?
Because we don't sell, we don't do like a sales process. We just chat with them on the phone. There's no like phone script on, hey, Mrs. Jones, thanks for calling today. We don't have something like that. We just shoot the shit with them and see what they want done, and we talk to them about it. It's really casual. Yeah.
I love that.
It's very unsystematized compared to everybody else, definitely.
I think I might know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Sales training in your world. Like, there's probably not a lot of like training that you guys are doing. There's no, you said no scripts or probably no documents or training, but what you're describing, you said like shoot the shit with them. That takes an EQ though, right? To be able to communicate with people on the phone and like relate to them and connect with them. So how are you choosing those people? And how are you making sure they're the right ones that should be taking those
so everybody
phone
goes.
calls? Or
Sometimes
is it
it is me, absolutely. So everybody goes to the truck, like they're going to go do windows, they're going to go clean the things, they're going to understand the services when we're on site. So when they talk to somebody, it's just very casual because they've done it for so much. But also, like if somebody gets nervous in the first couple of days, you ever use Responsibid? How it asks for like their information, the house size, and things like that. It's the same conversation we would have just chatting with them, but it keeps them online if they ever have like a mental break or it feels like fuzzy or they get nervous and have a brain cloud. So that's probably the easiest way. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Sorry, we had some technology errors the last time we aired this episode, and for some reason, we lost the end of this interview. So, Tyler, being the great person that he is, he actually came back, and we're going to finish the episode right now. So, Tyler,
So,
thank you for being here again. Where we left off is a part of the show is we always like to ask people if you had 10 minutes to change something in your sales process for your sales team, what is something that someone watching can do in like 10 minutes or less to help move that sales needle?
the one thing I see, in the same way with you, like we talk to so many entrepreneurs and business owners that are like from the 0 to like 3 year stage, and they're still figuring out like lead flow and stuff. They underestimate the value of really good and focused marketing early on. Because when our sales got really, I get to say like easier, like it was less salesy. It was like when people call us, they just want us to go fix the thing, whether it's dirty windows or gutters or whatever. Um, it only got that way when we started doubling down on our marketing and branding efforts, like to have the same message, to have the same like customer client comments on all of our, all of our social medias. We always have hundreds of 5-star reviews. Like those do the work for you. And
Mm,
people kind of miss that boat a little bit early on. They're so worried about getting lead flow. For us, we were fortunate that we were around some business owners that were kind of in the 10-year gambit of things, so they can kind of speed us along too. It was always focused on getting like all the reviews that you can, so it makes the sales easier. It's not a sales anymore. Like there's so much confidence in your brand and your business when people look you up. They just know you're going to do a
hmm
good job.
Love that. So focus on reviews, focus on like quality marketing
Absolutely.
early, and that will help you later on in the sales process.
What made us a lot of money early on is every time we would go to somebody's house and they would have like a dog or a horse or a donkey, we would go take pictures with those animals and post them on all of our Facebook stuff.
Nice.
It was like the
People,
best organic traffic you could possibly ever pay for. We got for free, just because we were doing all these mom and pop groups on Facebook and
yeah,
stuff, and it was fire. It caught
I
on so
love it.
fast.
Yeah, people like seeing their dogs being famous
They
or their
loved
pets in
it.
general,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so the last thing I want to do on this episode is a little fun thing we do on the show, and I would say, would you rather game sales edition?
Okay. Well,
And the question I want to ask you today is: would you rather earn a base salary of $250,000 a year with zero commission, or a 50,000 base salary with unlimited commission potential?
50,000 all day. I'm just a savage hungry dude though. So if I have an avenue where there's no cap on what I can earn, knowing what I know now versus 10 years ago. So 10 years ago I'd been like, "Oh, W2, 250. I'm
Sure.
clocking in, clocking out." Here over here I'm like, "I'm buying beach houses. Get out of my
There you
way."
go. There you go. Love it. Very cool. And that's, yeah, I imagine a lot of entrepreneurs, they would choose that second option too,
Yeah.
because in a way, that question is like, oh, watch me prove you wrong. Because
Oh,
like the question is implying there's no way you'll hit 250 with commissions.
yeah.
Oh, and the entrepreneurial attitude is like, want to bet?
I'll
Want to
talk you after
bet?
the game, mofo.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for being on the show twice. I really appreciate you coming back on to finish up this episode. For everybody that's going to be watching and listening, how do people get a hold of you?
Am I the first person that I've been on your podcast twice already?
You are in the history books, my friend.
Wow. Oklahoma.
Record books. That's right.
Popular. You can catch me on Facebook, message me on there. If you want to buy a really cool book, you learn a lot about business and stuff and how we got to where we are. One of these, one of these coming up soon.
Love it.
So
Little sneak peek.
waiting on a mutual friend to finish her part. And then
Ah,
we're going to launch that kitty cat.
very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so find them on Facebook. Hey, well, thanks for being on the show. Thank you for watching. I hope you got some value out of this episode and you're able to take away little nuggets to help you and your sales team help move that needle. Because, like I said, we understand we are a marketing agency. However, the leads that we help create, the traction we help create for your company don't mean anything if there's not anybody closing that fifth door of sales in your business. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.